are you familiar at all with like fractal geometry?
A little bit.
Okay, so do you know? Are you familiar at all with the
Oh no,
Mandelbrot
you're
set?
not. No, I was just gonna say that.
Is that a problem for you, or
No, but it's not a solution for theism either. I've never.
I'm not trying to
I'm
have a?
so confused when people say that the Mandelbrot set proves that God exists. I don't understand this at all.
Would you like me to help you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you're familiar at all with Hermetic philosophy. Probably not, right?
No. Is that
Okay.
like philosophy that you put inside a jar and it's airtight?
No, but
Oh.
Hermeticism is in and of itself recognized as airtight philosophy, and that's why the term Hermetic seal is used in reference to that.
Oh.
Okay, so
So I was right.
Hermeticism, well, kind of, but kind of not. Okay, so there's a more complex and nuanced view that can be derived from that. So essentially, what I'm saying is that, and this is the Hermetic philosophy, which is that God is mental, that the nature of God is mental, and that it is not physical, that physical reality emerges from the mental activity of that higher being. Okay. And part of what we know today is
That
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 the
that makes
universe.
that makes zero sense. If that's the case, then things should pop into existence all the time, and nothing has ever done that.
Except during the Big Bang.
No,
That's the one miracle that you have to allow and have no explanation for.
that's
For
not a
the world.
miracle.
Well, then explain it scientifically.
I mean, a long time ago, we couldn't explain why things fall down, but it was never a miracle.
We couldn't explain why things fall down because we had to have the explanation of what gravity and whatnot. Yeah. What I'm saying
Yeah,
is
but
essentially.
yeah, it was never so. But it was never a miracle just because it couldn't be explained. I mean, I'm just some rando on the internet. Like the idea that what I don't know is what the miracles in this world are. I mean, that's just that's very silly.
Okay, do you realize that your very existence in and of itself could be considered as like a miracle in that you started from a non-living or relatively non-sentient cell, and that cell emerged and evolved into the living organism that you stand and represent today?
There's
When you're
no,
saying
there's
things,
nothing miraculous about that.
there's nothing miraculous about it.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of interesting to say that when in all actuality, like life in and of itself is a very strange and odd thing to exist. Wouldn't you agree?
Uh, I mean, I could say that about literally anything. Uh,
That's kind of, yeah,
Tides go
exactly.
in, tides go out. You can't explain that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Magnets, how do they work?
So your point
These
about
aren't these
saying
aren't
that things
miracles.
pop into existence and out of existence or what have you is confirmed in the fact that reality even exists moment to moment. It is actually
No.
doing that,
No,
literally.
no, 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 not at all. So you said that God's mental states or whatever create
So that's what the other
things.
person said. That's what the other person said. I never said mental states or anything of that nature at all. I said that God is mental.
Yeah,
God is mind. I didn't say mental states.
that's fine. It's just a whatever. That's not a big deal. But because God is mental, right? God can manifest things into existence because he is mental, something along those lines.
No, I'm saying that essentially the nature of the universe that we live in. Okay, I'm not sure if you're familiar with simulation theory at all. Are you familiar with that theory?
We're not talking about that. You said something to the
It
effect
is
of
very simple.
God is mental, and that property of God, the physical world manifests itself out of God's mental whatever because he is mental or
Mental
something like.
activity.
Right. Well, if that were the case, then what you would expect is things to pop into existence all the time around us. But that's never happened.
Why would that be the expectation?
Because if God has that ability, if you're going to say this is something God can do, and all around us, we look around and the evidence, like your God is predictable, but the evidence of this God completely does not exist, this divine hiddenness or whatever, then I think that that bodes fairly poorly for your claim about this God you believe in.
I'm not sure why that has to be the like logistical leap there, where that God has to be making things. God created the universe with all of these specific, very finely tuned attributes, and there is a
No.
rule set within that universe. There is a rule set that that everything goes by within this universe.
Very important. Well, yeah, except miracles violate those. But very important question. Are you a young earth creationist?
No,
Okay, that's good.
I'm not a creationist in the conventional sense. I don't follow the Bible. I don't believe in a flat Earth or any of this kind of any of that kind of nonsense.
Well,
Okay,
that's good.
But my point is that the universe that we live in. How do you expect that you have a sentient consciousness if it wasn't a fundamental attribute of the universe that we live in the first place?
Every single thing we understand about human consciousness is that it derives from our mental states, which are caused by brain states. There's never been a single explanation of anything other than that.
According to whose narrative view that is prevalent in society and culture?
I was just using common sense.
Right. No, but if you go to India, the worldview is very different from that. You're looking at it from a Western scientific perspective that isn't even really scientific. It's more scientism than it is scientific.
I don't know what that means. Are you literally denying that changes in brain states produce changes in mental states? Because that would be very silly.
I would argue that it's the opposite, that the mental state changes
That's
the
insane.
chemical state. How is
So
that insane?
if
How
I
does that even...
so if I take DMT, that chemical is going to cause changes in the neural chemical activity in my brain, and then that is going to lead to an altered state of consciousness. But you're arguing that what really happens is the other way around.
No, I think that that is a specific case in which you're manipulating the
well,
actual
give me
aperture through which you're looking. But you can reach
Yeah,
those states,
except
you can reach mental states, and you there are examples like Ken Wilber and like super adept monks who reach those kind of states through meditation.
yeah, and what they do is they hyperfixate on their breathing. They take this voluntary and deliberate, controlled, whatever. They go through all these steps where those mental states are literally predicated on prior physical events that happened in order to induce a state of meditation, transcendent, whatever. You don't sit there and be like no monk is ever in the grocery store and then collapses into a state of nirvana because it came out of nowhere. The mental state just popped it in there. No, it's literally the other way around. If you can give me an example of a mental state being not, I can't think of the word. I don't know what the hell's wrong with my brain right now. Yeah, a spontaneous mental state that had no antecedent that causes changes in some sort of brain state, then that would be really interesting.
It's called an epiphany. They have a word for it. It's called epiphany. Yeah, people have epiphanies, and that does happen, yeah.
Yeah, so like, for example, I don't even know what the last word in this sentence I'm going to speak is, but the idea that it's literally just going to pop out of nowhere is really silly because I'm having thoughts and a lot of this is just kind of automatic in our brains, but I'm clearly relying on like information stored in my brain to be able to do this. And I don't know, I'll just be sitting around. Like last night I was trying to fall asleep and I couldn't really sleep very well. And I started to have like really weird, almost not like lucid dreaming, but like daydreaming type of random thoughts. And they seemed to come out of nowhere, But the idea that all of our thoughts just come out of nowhere, that would make all of us completely incoherent all the time.
No, but I'm saying
If everything was just bam, random thing, bam, random things with no antecedents, that is clearly not how we think. Even when things appear to spontaneously appear, I don't think that's a good argument that there's no prior condition responsible for it.
What we're talking about is things is an occurrence or an activity that is literally in the microseconds of activity, right? So you can't exactly expect to be able to measure that with your own measuring tool, your own mind, your own brain. You can't necessarily be like, oh yeah, I can recognize that I had this thought but it was coming from the chemicals, not from me, not from the source of the intelligence, but actually from your argument doesn't hold with regards to the actual physical reality that's going on there. You're saying
that's hilarious because no neuron has ever by itself manifested a thought completely divorced of any interaction with any other neuron. So no you.
Right, but what I'm okay. So what
right?
I'm
Okay,
arguing,
so I'm right.
I'm not sure if you're hearing what I'm saying.
I am.
There is a non-physical element to our existence, aka consciousness. Okay,
consciousness is not non-physical.
Oh, okay. So it's purely a physical manifestation. So our experience of the observer, our quality as being an observer to our perceptions, is a purely physical one.
Yeah, destroy your brain and watch your conscious experience begin to change and then cease.
And you know this for a fact.
It's the only thing we know about our consciousness.
Okay.
You're just asserting that it must be something else. This is like the idea that, like, I don't know, like logic is always true and logic comes from minds, therefore there must be an eternal mind. But actually the mind and the consciousness are like these outside things. People used to call it a soul, but now I'm trying to be edgy and I'm saying that it's this that it's really these things.
Can I give you an allegorical example as to how this makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say in the future, 200-300, however many years in the future, we develop a technique to remove the brain from the skull, but keep the sensory organs intact, or the sensory fibers intact. So they're still delivering signals to the spinal cord and the rest of the body. So we remove the brain, but the activity is still firing and connecting through a remote connection. Okay, so we've removed the brain and we put it into a jar, and we take that jar and we put it in a box, and we mail that brain to Canada, let's say. Okay,
not Canada.
What? Yeah. So let's say that you're still in the doctor's surgery room while this is being done. Okay, so you're still in the hospital or whatever, as your brain has left the hospital and is being transported to this other location.
My body is in the hospital, okay.
You're still perceiving through your five senses. Your eyes still work. Your hearing still still works.
Your vision, those things are, the vision particularly is actually an outgrowth of your brain. But,
I understand that.
my hearing works. The signals aren't going anywhere. You're just saying that, like, my body is still alive and whatever. If you prick me, the signal goes through my nerves into my spinal cord, but runs into a dead end. That's what we're saying.
No. What I'm saying is that it doesn't run to a dead end. That there is a remote connection. We are able to use little sensory nodes that can then send the signal to the brain remotely, so that the brain is still receiving these signals, and your brain is still interpreting those signals in a remote location. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, the brain is accessing the home Wi-Fi like TikTok does.
Okay, exactly. All right. So in that context, in that situation, you're still perceiving like you normally do, but your brain is not located in your body anymore. It has been transported somewhere
yeah, but it's still physical.
Yes, I'm not arguing that. That's not what we're arguing. What I'm saying is that the brain has been removed. Yep. And that you are still your sensory perceptions still work and are still being transferred to that brain, and that brain is still interpreting those, and it's still and then the brain is sending those signals back to the body in correspondence. Okay, because of the Wi-Fi.
Sure. I mean, something like this is done with
Okay.
people that are blind. There's I think there are some technologies where we put something in your brain where basically the signals go into the little microcomputer, interacts with the brain, goes back with that, and then you can say I think there actually are things, much less extreme examples like this, that exist. But like, where are we going with this?
Okay, where my question, as now that you understand what I'm saying, where are you in that scenario?
So, do you mean you as in my body, or me as in my personal identity?
The question, okay, the question is, where are you? What do you identify as in the first place, and where is that identity?
That whole hypothetical was so incredibly unnecessary because what you're asking me is, where are my thoughts? And I don't know where they are. Nobody does. Maybe that question doesn't even make any sense.
No, the reason that it's necessary to give that example is because a lot of people use the brain as their center of locus in reality, okay? But when we remove that factor and we transport the brain out of the body, the perceptions then are I am in the doctor's office. I am in the hospital, right? Because that's where your perceptions are located. That's where your sense of identity is located. But if you identify with the brain is located somewhere else. So in that context,
So? That doesn't mean that the brain isn't what has the thoughts or anything like that.
okay, again, that's not the point of this. The point of this
You're,
is not the
you're
thoughts.
quite,
If
this
you
has
identify
nothing
with
to
your
do with
thoughts,
anything we have talked
sure,
about today.
if you identify with your thoughts, then you are identifying with something that is not even who you are in the first place.
That's completely untrue, and your imaginary example doesn't say anything one way or the other.
It's intended as a kind of koan. Are you familiar with the term?
I had a
Japanese
colonoscopy
koan?
once, but
No,
no.
koan.
Actually, twice.
Kaoan. Koan. It
No.
is a riddle that is intended to get you to think about a concept or think about a different way of viewing the world. It's like when a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? It's that kind of a riddle. Or who is the master that makes the grass green?
Yeah, but what does this have to do with, is consciousness physical or not?
Because what it has to do with is your consciousness a part of your brain, or is it a part of your perception, or is it a part of something else? Where is
It comes
consciousness located?
Okay, well that's a completely different question. I don't think that there's any evidence that suggests anything other than our conscious experience emerges from our brain activity.
But okay, so if that's the case, then how does cells in your body have the ability to move around and have sort of a freedom of will to move around,
They
to make
don't.
choices? Your
What?
cells don't make choices?
No.
Really? To
Yes.
move one direction versus another isn't a choice.
No. The fact
What is it then?
that anything can happen, but only some things do happen, is not evidence that things freely choose to do anything. The tree in my front yard, it might grow leaning this way, that way, straight up, or whatever. Do you think that that tree is going to decide what it does? Or do you think that as it goes about doing whatever it does, growing, dividing, whatever, it responds to its environment?
Okay, well, either way, responding to its environment one way or another is a form of choice.
In the sense that a mountain chooses to erode by being subjected to the elements of nature, but that doesn't.
A mountain isn't a sentient or even remotely sentient being. It is a part of the environment.
Yeah, except the problem is your explanation doesn't allow us to parse out the difference.
A tree has anatomy. A mountain does not have anatomy.
Do you think that trees make decisions?
I think that trees have a discrete amount of of choice space, yes, in regards to how they react to the different environmental stimuli, just like any other living organism.
So I agree that there are things that trees can and cannot do, and there are things that trees do more often than not. But the idea that a tree decides to do anything, or even a unicellular thing decides to do anything, is I I don't know where you could possibly get that from. And the only explanation I've heard is
You're jumping
that
to a
because they
conclusion that
do
I'm
things,
not
that means
saying.
that they choose to do things.
Right. I'm not saying that it is a deliberate choice, but I am saying that there is a reaction or a kind of activity that is taking place there, and it has the ability to go either left or right, and it chooses whether you like it or not to
Yeah.
go in the direction of the sun.
You just explained the game of Plinko. So this doesn't help us determine if free will exists, what consciousness is, or anything like that. I could take everything you just said and use that on The Price is Right when they play Plinko.